effectively. Today's session that I'm going to share with you is Turbocharge Your Fundraiser Activation Rates with These Proven Emails. We have run a couple of campaigns using these emails, and that's what we're going to share with you today. And I just want to say thanks to my partners in this online conference, Accelerated Charity Growth, Cathexis Partners, Turnkey, OP3, and I'm Mandy O'Neill from Connected Nonprofit. So now let's get started that you can hear me. I'm Mandy O'Neill. I'm the Chief Strategist and founder of Connected Nonprofit and Emails That Convert. Originally, I had a co-presenter from Wounded Warrior Project, Tara Lee, and Tara was ill, so she was not able to make the presentation. It's nothing life-threatening, and we are sending her great vibes to get well fast. But I do want to say thank you very, very much to Wounded Warrior Project, because what you're about to see is really insider information. And I always think that it's so generous and such, and people show themselves as such leaders to share what their experiences have been in the peer-to-peer world. So huge thank you to Wounded Warrior Project, and healthy vibes going to Tara so she gets back on her feet fast. For today's presentation, we're going to feature the 2017 Soldier Ride Community Ride. You know, Wounded Warrior Project has soldier rides all over the country as part of their adaptive sports programs for the veterans that they serve, the wounded warriors and the veterans that they serve. Only 2 communities they'll open up the rides to non-warriors each year, and that's in Babylon and the Hamptons. And that gives civilian riders the experience and the opportunity to support and pedal alongside our nation's bravest men and women and raise money to benefit the programs of the Wounded Warrior Project. And so that's the case study that we're going to share, that I'm going to share with you today. I have Tara on the line, but there was a twist. There is always a plot twist, and the plot twist is that with the software, I'm not going to name the software, but the software that we were using for their email marketing for the program, it turns out that there was a universal opt-out. So if anyone had ever opted out of anything, they got opted out of everything. So even if you registered for the event, we could only communicate with about 40% of the people who participated. So once you had opted out of anything, you were opted out of everything. So we were only able to communicate or send emails with 40% of the registered participants. And here are a sample of the results we got using this email strategy. The first is we increased registration by 85%, which was a huge, huge win. The second is that we increased fundraising by 56%. And that's what, this is the campaign you're going to be looking at today. And then we finally increased our fundraiser activation rate by 12%. So we were able to get these kind of results, even only speaking to 40% of the registrants. And so I really feel confident saying to you that you're going to be able to bump your fundraiser activation rate easily by 10%. Now, I wanted to start off with a few fundraising benchmarks, and this is the fundraiser activation rates as reported by the latest Blackbaud survey. And what their survey says is that participants in cycling events, only about 35% are activate as fundraisers. In endurance events, I apologize, I had that backwards. 35% of cyclists never fundraise. For endurance events, 40%, roughly 39 to 40% do not fundraise. If you're doing a 5K, 85%, basically 86% of your participants are not fundraising. And if you're doing a walk, that number is 69%. Those are kind of grim numbers if you really think about it. But here's how you can beat those benchmarks. You control the game of through your email marketing, and to some extent to your Facebook advertising, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that at the tail end of this presentation. But you control the game through your tone, your message, and your frequency. It really is that simple. What we tried to do is strip down to the bare essentials of what really is going to move the needle or make the change for you. And the number one item is the tone. You want to define your tone and also stick to it. You know, sometimes emails and all the communication in peer-to-peer fundraising tends to be done by committee. And unfortunately, when you do that, then you kind of have a rough time sticking to your tone. The first thing with your tone is you always want to create a fundraising culture. Oftentimes, to get people to register, you do have to talk about how much fun they're going to have in the event and how, you know, what a personal challenge it's going to be for their own, you know, best personal time, and how they can get social, where they're going to belong to a specific group of people, or get social and show up on social media networks as being highly involved in a charity. But we always anchor those messages with remembering the reason we come together is to raise funds for an important cause. People are counting on us. This is what binds us together. This is the reason for the event. And so I encourage you to always anchor almost every message. It doesn't have to be 100%, but every message with that. What's in it for the participant, that they're going to have fun, they're going to have a family day, they're going to challenge themselves physically, whatever it is they want to get out of the event. But remember, the reason we're doing this is because people are counting on us to raise funds for an important cause. The other thing that, if Tara were here, she would explain much more elegantly, but she had advised that sticking to the tone is one of the tricks that they've done internally is, in order to keep their communication tone consistent throughout the full team and with all of their communications, is they didn't just create personas of their participants, they created a persona of the writer who is writing, and whoever was writing something actually got into that persona as the single voice speaking from the organization. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant because, you know, as you know, in nonprofit world, everything's by committee, right? Okay, so that's tone.
Hey, Mandy?
The second is the frequency.
Hey, Mandy?
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing your screen in full screen? We can kind of see the upcoming slide.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let me see. Oh, so you must be off of this screen. Okay. Let me see if I can shift that.
Because you're sharing your screen, so we can see both right now.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. What?
You're sharing your screen, so we can see your entire screen right now. So we're seeing both
Oh,
slides.
you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get out of the slideshow. I think that's what's happening. How's that? Is that better?
Much better. And if you can do it full screen, that'd be perfect.
Okay, great. We'll just do it this way then. What I did is I had it in show mode, and I think that's what tripped us up.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so, and then I'm gonna close those all the way out so you can't see that. And
you know, Mandy, if you click that little next where the slider bar is to the left on the very bottom right hand side where it reads 97%.
Yep.
See that little, click that. Oh no, not the slide. Click there. There you go. Where that little where you had it, you were on it. Click the little thing next to the negative. Click that.
So that's what I had it on, and that's what enabled you guys to see the screen.
So if you go up to display settings and then drop down on display settings.
Actually, is this screen okay for you guys?
Sure.
Okay, let's roll with this screen, and then we're not having to worry about it. Okay, so frequency. Now here's the thing about frequency that I wanted to share in advance. And that is that Marketing Sherpa did a survey a couple of years ago asking people in North America, actually 2,057 people responded to the survey, asking them how often they wanted to get promotional emails. And this is the response to that survey. And what is interesting is, I'm not going to go through the whole chart, but most people said at least monthly, but over 60% said they wanted something at least weekly. And then they answered it again with another 30% saying weekly. And there were some that said daily, twice a week. But the bottom line is, what we're finding out in email marketing is that if you communicate with folks on a weekly basis, that keeps you relevant, that keeps you salient in their inbox. If you go too long without communicating with people, that's where you really risk the unsubscribes and not being relevant and ending up having people delete you out of their inbox because you're not in front of them enough. So that consistency and that frequency that we really strive for is at least weekly. Now, oftentimes you can't do that. So at a minimum, you want to do exactly what 2,000 people responded to, which is at least monthly. You definitely want to go with that kind of frequency. And I will, right after this session, or right after this section, I'll stop and check for questions if you have any questions about that, and we can also jump back to that piece. I know a lot of the chat box was that you couldn't hear me, so, but I did want to get into the goods here, which is the actual an email schedule and the frequency. And I wanted to share with you what I'm about to share with you is in a free download. You can get it at emailsthatconvert.com, Turbocharge Your Fundraisers. This is exclusive to peer-to-peer world, so you'll be able to get this brochure and everything we're talking about as a PDF download. So you don't have to worry about coming back through the recording unless you want to. So the first set of emails that are super, super important are the automated or the behavior-based emails. And by the way, let me frame this out, that there are a whole lot of schedules and a whole lot of things you can do. What I can tell you is that this schedule worked for us. There's going to be some adjustments, and you'll definitely need to make adjustments based on your event, based on your time of year, based on a whole host of things. But whatever you choose as far as frequency and emails, the single most effective times to email your participants are, one, right after they've registered, because that's when they're the most excited about your event. They've pumped up, they've made that registration, they've got, you want to make sure that they don't have any buyer's remorse. Just jump in there and communicate with them. The second best time to email folks is when you are getting closer to your event, because again, the event's becoming more real, it's more salient, and they're building a ton of excitement. And then the third best is any time that there's a behavior that they've engaged in. And that means that maybe they're getting close to their fundraising goal. Maybe they've hit 50% or they hit their fundraising goal. You definitely want to set some automated emails to congratulate them for that and move them to the next level. So this campaign that you're about to see really focuses on those three big leverage points. Does that make sense? I'm going to do, yeah, okay. Okay, good. Okay, so without going into too much detail, right after someone registers, I recommend a series of basically 5 emails. Okay, and in the chart, you can see the days after registering, the email, and then the key message in the email. The days after registering, you can play with this a little bit. I used to do day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. That overwhelmed people. So by the 5th day, we weren't getting many unsubscribes, but we also weren't getting a whole heck of a lot of opens and definitely no click-throughs. So I recommend that you play with every other day. Of course, immediately people will get the welcome email, and I encourage you to open your welcome email with reinforcing what people want when they sign up for your event, whether they want a cure for the disease, or they want bragging rights, or they just want to belong to a group of people who know what they're experiencing. Whatever is the big driver for people to register for your event, you will, that I want you to reinforce that, and then you can go into all of the event details. They're going to get that immediately upon registering. And by the way, when I say reinforce what they want, In the download that I'm offering you, I actually give you the tools and the questions to ask to get to that, to understand what is really motivating people to sign up for your event. So then the next email is register plus 1 day. You could do it immediately 1 day, and I always encourage people to start strong with a personal donation. That their donors are going to follow their lead, donate right now, and make the case for how the impact that they'll have and the how important. It's almost like a donor appeal type of email. Then wait a couple of days and I send them a fundraising script. Now I have to tell you, we found that email got the best opens. People loved having a script to ask people for donations. So there really wasn't any action on the email. There weren't click-throughs for this email, but people loved having that, hey, I know it's tough to ask for money, and if you're not a seasoned fundraiser, sometimes it can be scary. Here's a script to get you started. And you can change it to customize the script to whatever you want to do. But people loved that email, and we were a little bit nervous about it because we thought, geez, that's kind of bold. That is a winning email right there. And then maybe a couple of days later, you encourage people to send an email. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can send them back to your online fundraising software to send the email out of there. But what we've been doing lately, and it's working really well, is to format an easily forwardable email. And we actually use pretty much the same script that we sent 2 days ago. And the way that we set it up is the subject line is easily the same subject line that somebody would send to their friends and colleagues. And all they have to do is delete all the text above the email script that's in there, and then they modify it, edit, and they can forward it to anyone they want to forward it to. They can forward it to a whole group, or they can forward it to people individually. And we're finding that that's pretty successful in getting people to get that first email out the door. And that's always the tough part, is get that first email out the door. The next email is a couple of days later, and asking people to post on social media. Same concept. Create a Facebook or Instagram ready post with the image in the post and a hashtag so that they can copy and paste in less than 5 minutes if they aren't going to come up with their own creative. You've got super fundraisers, they're going to come up with their own creative, or they have a really powerful story. That's great, but the vast majority of your folks do not. What this welcome series is designed to do is, again, create the fundraising culture, but it's also designed to get that first donation in the door. Because one thing we do know statistically is if people get that first donation in the door in the first 7 days, they're more likely to hit their fundraising goal. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to do a quick check on questions. Do you have any advice for events where registration is in 2 parts? Registering for the event activity is separate than registering for the fundraising. So Megan, yeah, what I would say on that situation is, and sometimes it has to be done via batch, which I know is awful. If you're in 2 different systems, that's really hard to do. But I will tell you, this immediate welcome and this series is so important. I would actually set up a system where on a day-by-day basis, you do the batch integration and then set up your emails so that they go automatically. Because remember, once you set the first one to go, the rest are going to trigger automatically. No matter what system you're using, they're going to automatically go no matter what. So really, you're just having to do like a daily batch integration. And the one thing I will share with you is, and I know you may not be able to do this, but that immediate welcome email, I cannot overstate how important that affirmation of, gee, you just registered, welcome to the family, man, you are really doing your part to help find a cure, or whatever the issue is super, super important. So whenever you can, I would love to see you move to a system where it's in the same place. Ted asks, are you sending these emails via your fundraising software or your work email, Blackbaud or Outlook? All of these emails are designed to be sent from your online fundraising softwares, whether that's Blackbaud, Donor Drive, Stay Classy, it could be any of those above integrated with MailChimp. It really is designed to come out of the fundraising software. I don't recommend, it's really tough if you have to send it out of Outlook. It's not impossible, but it's really, really tough. So these are really set up to be automated. Somebody registers through your online event or fundraising software, and then it starts the trigger of these emails going. And then, do you think that this list of email, Mia, do you think that the list of emails you suggest sending within the first week would be overwhelming to send as one welcome email? Oh yeah, oh God, yeah, it would never get read. That's a great question. Oh man, I'm so glad you brought that question up. Yeah. And to be honest, I'm one of those people that's really guilty of too long of a welcome email as it is. There's no way you could put all of that in, and here's why. People will get completely and utterly overwhelmed and they will shut down. Each of these emails, each of these tasks, and I'll even put this into the copy, each of these tasks are only 5 minutes. It only takes somebody 5 minutes. And once somebody realizes that it only takes 5 minutes to do a fundraising appeal, to do something, forward motion to getting engaged with fundraising for you, that starts them on a path that's much easier to convince them to keep going. So this is way too much. And the mistake that many of us make is we'll send the welcome email and then we'll go, hey, update your fundraising page, make a personal donation, send an email, post on social media. And by the time you get to that fourth bullet, people aren't doing any of it. They won't do any of it. So this is specifically broken up into little doable 5-minute pieces that people could do right from their phone. Because by the way, the majority of them are going to be reading this email on their mobile phone. I'm really afraid to open up this 41 chat box. Okay, I think we've got all of that. Okay, Ted, I got yours. Yeah. Emails that convert.com, turbocharge your fundraisers. Okay, let me scritch through. Okay, yeah, most of them are the sound issue. Okay, great. And I will go back through those. If I missed your question, do not panic. We've got plenty of time, and you can see that I'd love to have this be an interactive session. Okay, so the next set of emails are what we call the event activation emails. And this is where you are using the excitement and the deadline, if you will, of your event. You're actually getting people focused on the event. And there's a couple of things that I threw in here. One is a fundraising challenge, like a 5-day or a 7-day fundraising challenge. I'm not a huge fan of any fundraising challenges that lasts longer than 5 days. I think that's enough. But just, kick off a fundraising challenge that people are going to maybe, and I didn't go into into description of a fundraising challenge, but generally you'd send out like 3 emails the week of your fundraising challenge, including the final one, which is, yay, here are the winners of your fundraising challenge. Now that's easy to do if you have, a single local event. Not so easy to do if you are one of our multi-city, multi-chapter events. So that's a little bit different, but definitely I highly recommend fundraising challenges because it will generally boost the number of donations coming in. And of course, it boosts your cash flow. Then we start in with like 21 days before the event, your logistics email. You start making your event real by sending a list of everything people need to know for the event. Now, many of us, some of the details aren't even worked out 21 days before the event. I totally get that. And that's even better. Still send the logistics email and remind readers that they need to watch their inbox for further details coming down the pike. 18 days before the event, maybe do your finisher's medal reveal, t-shirt reveal, anything like that that's going to get them excited about the event and their own experience at the event. And then again, ask them to reach out and make a fundraising appeal. And then I kind of start to mimic a little bit of sending an email, asking them to send another email. Again, I provide a template in the email if they're not, so people don't have to feel like they're good storytellers. And then also 10 days before the event, have them post on social media. And I'm just going to say right here that this is bare bones. I've got clients who send much more email than this, but I didn't want to overwhelm you too much because, the emails are going to basically be about coaching and value. You can see the logistics email provides value to your readers and then asks them to fundraise. Your finisher's medal reveal provides value, asks them to fundraise. So even asking them to send an email, you're providing them with a template and you're giving them value and making them look good to their friends if they send a really well worded email. So all of these are easy to act upon. Again, that 5-minute act upon gesture makes it easy for people to take action on these from their phone when they read it. Okay, and then the final set are your post-event emails, which is one day after, a thank you and a survey, congratulate them on achieving their goal, that, together we did so much more, and then, offer a survey to get feedback. I often use a Google survey to get feedback, and it's not only feedback on the event, but it's great for testimonials, getting testimonials for the next year. 3 days after, send pictures from the event, ask people to share their own event, and then create some urgency by letting people know that they need to get their pledges in. They need, the donation portal will be open for whatever you want it open for, 21 more days or 30 more days, but give people a deadline so that they get their final donations in. And then 3 days after, to zero fundraisers only. This is a special targeted audience. If people didn't raise any money and didn't make a personal donation, I highly recommend that you send them, thank you for participating and please make a personal donation. This is almost like a pure, straight up donor appeal. Show the impact that their donation is going to have. Quit having any kind of conversation about them fundraising and just get them to make a personal donation. Does that make sense? Let me jump into Q&A. So Erin, on the fundraising challenge, I do have examples. And there can be prizes, and generally speaking, it is good to have prizes, but prizes are easier to give when your event is in like a single city, and rather than across a nation, because a nationwide fundraising challenge is a little bit tough to do. But just an example of a fundraising challenge, there's a couple of examples out there, and Erin, if you email me, I think my email address is in here, but if you email me, I can give you a couple of examples. But one I'll just give because people are asking is the easiest fundraising challenge is like a 7-day fundraising challenge. Day 1, you make a donation. Day 2, you ask 2 family members for $50. Day 3, ask 3 friends for $20. And you can see that what you're doing is, day 1 is you raise $25 from yourself. Day 2, you raise $50 because you got 2 $25 donations from family members. Day 3 is another $60 on top of what you've raised. So you can do that. The caution that I have here is that kind of fundraising challenge, you want to customize your fundraising challenge for where your event participants are at. That might be too basic of a fundraising challenge. So I don't want you to come in low. Like if your average fundraising, if your people who are, your fundraising average is already $175 per event or per fundraiser, you don't want to start out with something that low. So you definitely want to customize your fundraising challenge to where people are at. But again, Erin, shoot me an email, and I'll give you my email before this is over. Shoot me an email and I'll get you a couple of examples, okay? I'm gonna check here. And yeah, so DM, this is a great question. With every email that you send out, you risk the fundraiser unsubscribing from all the subsequent emails, including the event emails. How do you handle these situations? Just a second, I'm gonna take a drink of water. They just opt out. The truth is, you're not going to get as many opt-outs from this number of emails as you would expect. You do tend to not get as many. With some of, like I had a client that had a bunch of people in the New York Marathon. And what I found is that when you're with some of those bigger events, that there is so much promotional email that some people will sign up with a special dedicated email address, so it all goes into that box. So sometimes you have trouble connecting with them around event logistics. But the truth is you're going to have unsubscribes no matter what, and you don't get any higher unsubscribes with this email. I want to go back to, and I love that you're asking this question, because I want to go back to this. If you're not in your inbox of your participants at least weekly, particularly as you lead up to your event, they're going to forget you. You're not going to be salient. You're going to have a hard time re-energizing them anyway. And so, if you have, like a 0.18% unsubscribe rate, you're probably going to get that anyway. That's just standard for the standard unsubscribe rate. So you're not getting any more by sending this series of emails. And even though that seems like a lot of emails, I want to share with you that most of the time you're probably going to send a little bit more than that, because you are going to add on some additional emails. Maybe you're going to send out a call for volunteers or something like that. You're still totally fine in the volume of emails, and what you're doing is you're keeping the people who care about your event and your mission engaged, and that's the group that you want to speak to. If somebody doesn't want to get your fundraising emails and unsubscribes from it, they probably weren't going to be your top fundraiser anyway, so you just don't worry about it. And as far as your event logistics go, you're going to have those posted somewhere on your website anyway. So I wanted to, again, give you all of this, plus the questions you should ask, and a super secret way, not so secret, I would even tell you here, but a super secret way to get even higher results than what we're sharing with you today is in that download. Oh, and by the way, you don't have to submit an email address or anything. Just go, the download is there for you, okay? So there's that. I want to see how we're doing time-wise. Okay. So the next important piece is your messaging. And the single most important aspect that any fundraising participant wants to know is the impact they're having. And yes, it's all about them. It's really is all about them. So I'm encouraging you, with all of the emails that you write, always attribute the impact that they're having thanks to you. It's not what you are accomplishing for them, it's thanks to you. It's about the impact your participants and donors have with your support, because of you. Together we can. This is what we're achieving. And impact fundraising, there's two things that, from a messaging standpoint, that work right now. One is the impact that you're having through your fundraising, and the impact that your donors are having, and storytelling. Those are really the things that are, from a copy standpoint, are really working and turning the needle and moving the needle. I want to suggest that in your copy, you avoid using mission statement kind of statements, because they're almost always too vague. And again, thank you to Wounded Warrior Project. Here's an example. General statement would be that you're in this cycling event to honor and empower wounded warriors. Or when you get specific, every day 44 service members sign up to receive critical support and services offered by Wounded Warriors, or Wounded Warrior Project. And what I didn't put here is that they never have to pay for services. They never pay a dime for services because they already paid on the battlefield. Those kinds of specifics convert because people can get their hands around it. To honor and empower Wounded Warriors, you know, it's true. It's a true statement, but it's too vague to get your fingers around. I hope that makes sense to you. So whenever you can, be specific, because it'll convert like crazy. And I'm wondering, time-wise, let me do a little check here. I wanted to set aside a little bit of time for to do some brainstorming a few. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and finish with the presentation, and then during Q&A, if we've got time, we can come back and brainstorm a few specifics where I'm happy to take your general mission statement and help you get a little bit more specific about it for something that's going to convert a little bit more. Okay? Is that fair? Oh, and I can't put it into show mode because of the configuration here, but that's a really fun GIF. Anyway. Finally, your most effective thing to do. I think what I want you to do is get your fundraisers, your participants, to get their first donation in the door in that first 7 days, because those are the people that are going to hit their fundraising goal. Those are the people that are really going to nail it. Then your next opportunity, because if you don't get them engaged in fundraising, you kind of lose that momentum, but then you can use your event activation to get them going. And that's what we're going to talk about here. And I've got a pop quiz. When you look at these two ads, which I know are going to be a little bit of an difficult to see, but which ad do you think worked the best? We did this one. This is a heavy in content ad, and then this was less heavy and a little bit more visual in the ad. And I just want you to think about it for a moment. Which one do you think was more engaging and got more engagement? Okay, good. Visual and short. Yeah. Anyone else? No other takers? Okay, well, I have to admit it was a bit of a trick question, because the one that achieved the most, first of all, it wasn't fair because one was a recruitment email, or one was a recruitment and one was this. But the logistics email that I talked about, we actually put that into an ad. And we only targeted the folks that were registered in the ad, because if you remember, we could only communicate with 40% of the registrants. So we wanted to get the information out to that other 60% that we could not communicate with. So we did a targeted Facebook ad, and look at this engagement. Look at this engagement. These are the comments and the engagement from that audience. And yes, it's a highly engaged audience because they're obviously registered for the event. And I know it's a little tough to read, but a lot of these comments were just people excited to say, I'm going to be there. Oh, you know, we've got our bike. We're going to be there. Can't wait to see you. There were a few questions that came up. So this was a super, super effective ad. But whether you have that same problem of not being able to communicate via email with your registrants or not, we learned with this event that you always run one of these type of ads, because it is so super effective for motivating people to about their event. And again, I apologize for the visual here, but actually down here is the information about them fundraising, getting their last donations in, where to submit any offline donations, and that, yeah, we'll be accepting donations at the event. But this what turned out to be one of the new discoveries of, wow, what a great way to use event activation to get your folks going. Now, there are 9 ways that Tara and I brainstormed to use event activation for your fundraising activation. The first is always be specific about what the event supports, and get as specific as you can without getting caught into designated fundraising. You clearly don't want to limit what you can spend the money on, but get very descriptive, even down to, you know, the idea, I love the idea of what we in direct response we call dollar handles, which is, you know, $100 will pay for violin lessons for 3 kids, or whatever those specifics are. The more specific you get, the more money is going to be fundraised. The second is to describe your donor's impact in terms of the outcome for your mission or the benefactors. So thanks to you, people will have fresh drinking water. Thanks to you, puppies will be rescued from Hurricane Florence. Thanks to you, all of those, any kind of impact that you're looking for in your event is thanks to the donor, not their money. It's not you're doing it, it's not their money, it's thanks to them. Because of them, the kids will get after school programs or whatever the issue is. The third is to ask for a donation in the registration process. And I know that sounds, that's something that you're probably already doing, but we just cannot emphasize enough how important it is to make that ask that very early. And you see that I turn around and make that ask again a couple of days after they register. Hold a fundraising challenge, which we mentioned. Post your fundraising leaderboard in your emails or on your website. It fuels the competition. I love, if you can, post it in your emails. Sometimes that's a little bit harder to do than it is on your website, but it's an easy way to recognize the people who are really out there supporting you, and then also convey to everybody else, yeah, this is a fundraising event. This is what we do. This is why we're doing it. And then of course, when it comes to the teams, you create a ton of competition. They're like, oh no, I'm not coming in third. Let's go out and raise some more money and get to first and second. Some additional, 5 additional ones are start a fundraising club. Once people are raising $1,000 for you, maybe classify them as a special kind of benefactor, or, the platinum circle or something like that, where there's some extra benefits and some exclusive benefits. Not only is it a way to recognize them, but particularly at the event, everybody else is going to be looking and going, wow, you look what they get. And it's because they're raising $1,000 or more, or whatever that amount is. If it's a small event, you can have a fundraising club at $500. If it's a big event, maybe your fundraising club doesn't start till $2,500. It's up to you. Send that logistics email out 30 days. In the schedule, I put 21, but you can send it out up to 30 days to make the deadline real. And use the urgency of the actual event date as a deadline for donations. Encourage people to get their donations in by the event day. And yes, you're going to send out an email afterwards saying, oh, you have 2 more weeks to gather up your pledges and get additional donations. It doesn't matter. Deadlines work. Deadlines are a marketer's best friend, so use that deadline. And using the portal close date as a deadline. You don't want to leave your donations open-ended, because then people never really kind of have the urgency to get their final donations in. And no, particularly if you have some fundraising prizes, which is the final one, using incentive qualification. If there's some fundraising prizes, they need to get their donations in order to qualify for their fundraising prizes. Does that make sense? Okay, I do know that I skipped over one thing earlier. I wanted to give this to you again, and then I am going to jump back here real quick, and then we'll jump into questions. I skipped over this piece, and I sincerely apologize for it, but do you see here where it says milestone emails and key message? If you remember, I said to you that on these behavior-based emails, when people are getting close to hitting their fundraising goal, one of the best things you can do is recognize that, you know, to pull it out and go, man, you're doing great. This is awesome. And you can actually, and if you're using fundraising software, you can set that as automated. If you're not using fundraising software, you can still do it. It's a little bit harder. You could do it manually out of Outlook, but if you're using any of the online softwares, and this is a huge, I need to jump off and say that Cathexis Partners just published an amazing software comparison analysis. I can't even begin to tell you how much work had to have gone into it, but it's saving the rest of us hours and hours of poring over, you know, over the functionality in each of the software. I would take a look at that analysis and make a decision about going with an automated online fundraising software if you're not already. That said, it's really key that you are spending time and giving extra attention to your fundraisers who are already performing. And so I like to create an automated milestone email set of 3 emails, these 3 emails right here. And you can tweak these however you want to tweak them. The first is, once they've hit 50% of goal, you want to get out an email that says, man, you are tearing it up. This is awesome. You're doing so great. We think you're going to make it all the way. And here is an idea to help you raise even more. And it could just be something as simple as, you know, share this statistic, share this meme on social media, whatever you want to do to give them a tool to keep going where they're going. The key message here is that opening line where you're saying, man, you are getting our attention. You're doing great. Congratulations. We're watching you and we're impressed. The next is optional. You can send them another email at 75% of goal. I like to do it because I like email. You may say, okay, that's too much. As soon as they hit 50% of goal, I'll give them some coaching. But I love 75% of goal, and with the message, we really believe in you. You are almost there. Together, we can get you over the top. And by the way, here's the impact you have through your fundraising. And then finally, when participant hits 100% of goal, and no matter what, even if you don't send out the 50% and the 75%, please send out the 100%, because you want to congratulate them. You want to make them feel like they're being noticed, that they're a major contributor. And most importantly, you want to get them to increase their fundraising goal. Because the reason is if people go to their fundraising page and it looks like they've already hit their goal, they might leave and not make the donation. So encourage them that if they had set a goal of 500 and they just hit 500, bump it to 750. There's enough time before the event that we know you can hit it, and keep your momentum going. So that's really what would happen in that 100%. And I apologize that I skipped over that a little bit earlier, but I did want to make that point, particularly when it comes to this 100% email. Okay, now we're going to roll back to our Q&A, and I think what I'll do is I'll leave it there. And do you have any recommended strategies to ensure all registered participants follow on social media? So all of them are not. All is kind of a tough goal to hit. But yeah, there's a couple of things you can do. One, I usually am asking people to do something fundraising-wise in every email. And my rule of thumb is only ask people to do one thing per email. Never, ever, ever do the checklist or the laundry list or the grocery list. I never, ever, ever, ever do that. But that said, you could always do a PS if you want extra information about the event. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram, whatever your social media of choice is. You can definitely do that. You can also, the other wording that I found to be really successful is, see what your fellow runners or cyclists, or see what your fellow supporters of such and such are doing on social media. Another one is another dedicated email that you can send out that we've had some success with is to ask people to specifically post something. Whether it's posting the person that they're running for, or it's posting something funny about their training. That's usually a dedicated email, and I would make sure that you have the type of audience that's going to be social media savvy around that. So in other words, it's a little bit more successful with the endurance fundraising than it might be with some of the walks, for example. And then finally, the final one are groups. Definitely with groups, you can set up a special group for people who are participating in the event. And what we find is that they have a lifespan. The group, will start, it'll be slow, it'll get busy, it'll get really frenetic right before the event, and then it slows down and it kind of dribbles off. So I actually would put a sunset on the group and let people know that if you have a specific Facebook group for a specific event, that the Facebook group will be archived. It won't be, it won't be deleted, but it will be archived, say 60 days after the event, unless for some reason the group themselves is, they want to keep it going and there's high engagement, in which case there's no reason to shut it down. But I hope that gave you some ideas on how to increase the engagement on social media. One thing I would add to that is I love using social media to reinforce what you're sending out in email. I really love loading their email addresses into Facebook to get a custom audience and making sure that people are seeing the action that needs to be taken on both social media as well as in email. And that works, I know a lot of people do that for recruitment, but it's super effective for fundraising as well. There's no reason to not do that, particularly if you're only spending like, $5 a day in your Facebook advertising. Okay, question. Please go back to the page, download address. Okay, I think I'm there. Dan, I think we're cool on that, right? So you've got the email address for this brochure, and I'm going to ask, do we have any other questions? I don't think we do. So before we can wrap up a little bit early, but before we do, the one thing I am going to go back to, I'm going to irritate Dan by going back here, is if you, on the specifics, when I talk about specifics converting like crazy, going from general to specifics, if anyone has something that we want to brainstorm around going from general to specific, I'm happy to give you the time to do that. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for your wonderful PDF and for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to give people one more minute, and then we can do a wrap 5 minutes early. I know it's probably been a crazy fun day of great content, and you might be wearing out a little bit, so I'd be comfortable giving you an extra 5 minutes. New and Tracy, are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yep, we're all good here.
Okay, I'm going to go back to I'm not seeing anyone. Oh, I do want to go back to here so you can see that, again, coming up at the top of the hour is going to be Rachel talking about sponsorships, and she's got good stuff. Oh, sorry. Yep. Oh, thanks, Rachel. Boom. Oh, and my contact information is, I'm going to do this. I do apologize for the technical issues, folks. I'm going to do. And you can reach me anytime at Mandy@ConnectedNonprofit.com. So let's give it 30 more seconds, and then New, I think we can do a wrap up.
All right.
While we're wrapping up, let me thank everybody who joined us today. I know your time is super, super valuable, and I know it's limited, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I respect the work that you're doing and the fact that you gave me 55 minutes of your day. I really
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mandy. That was wonderful. So everyone, we've reached the end of our time for this session. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. Please note that if you'll be joining us for our next and last session, you need to log back into the next session by using the link and the dial-in number that you received via email when you registered. See everyone there.